allows you to be with anybody else's humanity because you can actually see your own.
I love that, Gail, and I also think that we can maybe add, not to any way take away anything from that, because that's solid. I mean, to me, that makes a lot of sense. There's an and to that. I think we can also learn, and we need to learn about how we are the other. There's this famous question, and I forgot, is Ramash, Ramashi, oh gosh, I don't remember the man who was asked this, but was asked, how am I to help others? And the response was, there are no others. It's, if you think about that, almost like a koan, there is no other. These are all mirrors of you. We are all each other. And frankly, we are, contrary to what the famous existentialists of the early last century would say, you're born alone, you live alone, you die alone. It's not true. You're born in community. There's at least one other person there when you're born. I promise you, unless you're, in vitro test tube baby, but no. So you're born in community. We tend to be very social creatures, and we live in community usually, even if we're out, we somehow there's usually some contact, unless we're hermits, but those are usually the exceptions. And there needs to be more hospice, more dying together in community as well, transitioning together. So when we are held in community, this is the type of leadership, I think, that we can recognize in ourselves, and we can foster in each other. This is the collective intelligence and the empathic intelligence when it's brought into play. How do we create the social systems that highlight that, where we put a premium on the connective, collective intelligence and the empathic intelligence, and that celebrate this Ubuntu and interbeing, and not just I'm going to be okay by myself. But remember the guy in the woods saving the Amazon. He wasn't saving the Amazon. He's part of the Amazon rainforest saving itself. Again, that sense, I am part of this community. I am a voice for us. And I'm also, the traditions in many shamanic circles and many indigenous tribes, the idea of that there's the empty chair. Whenever we are sitting in circle, we have an empty chair. Why? Because that includes the voices of the voiceless. And we listen in empathetically. For those who are not sitting with us physically at this moment, they represent future generations. They represent our ancestors and spirits. They represent the trees and the animals who our decisions today will impact. Let's listen to them too. So the empty chair is an important inclusion in the diversity of the community. So, again, I think this way of making sure that you're and the intrapersonal stability, right, that balance that I mentioned, but you really need to bring that into the sense of, we are each other, this interbeing, this Ubuntu. I think,
I guess that's
the last thing, Gail, on this, I want to say about this, I think the next step for humanity, in terms of our evolutionary potential, is collective intelligence. I really think this is where we're moving. If we don't somehow master or come into a way of collective intelligence, and this goes to what Robert was saying earlier on about, really bringing in the less of the patriarchal, hegemonic, dominator kind of frames, more of the partnership, more of what is truly Gailanic or feminine in our ways of being interdependent, then I don't think we're going to really be a global species that we're starting to be. We're going to be a bunch of individuals at war rather than a global species. This is our true potential, but we need to develop our collective intelligence, our collective consciousness. I think that's our challenge.
I have to agree with you. I think maybe I didn't explain it right. What I was basically saying, it starts with us, then outward. Um, and the empathic side, I think we all have to learn to develop. Some of us are, some people are very empathic. They're clearly naturally empathic, and then others have to learn to develop that within themselves. through meditation, journaling, whatever they do, or through other people. But thank you for your time.
No, thank you.
Do you see my new Marvel on Gail?
Oh, let me take a look.
Yes, please.
I was so into what everyone was saying, I didn't. Alice, could you take a look? Who's there? The name is
Alexander.
Yeah.
We thank you for your time and energy, and
My
let's stay in touch because, like we said, we're all one. We need to work on the blueprint together. Not only work on it to design it, we need to implement it. So we're all working towards that goal, and we like you to be part of our circle.
Wonderful. Well, I will send you a PDF of the slides. You feel free to share it. There's no copyright on this. I'm just happy to share it with whoever's interested. Thank you for doing this. This is what we need to be, thinking and feeling together, right? All my relations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexander.
Thank you. Bye-bye then.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, David.
Hi, Manu Marvel. Thank you for having us on. Hopefully you didn't have to wait too long. You were able to hear what Alexander Laszlo was saying. Were you able to hear us a little bit?
No, I wasn't able to. You had to let me into the room. So,
yes, I would like to introduce Manu Marvel, who is the founder of the World Dignity Forum. And among other things, she can introduce herself. And we have here again, still on here, we have Robert and Gail on here. And you please take it away.
okay. Thank you, David. Just wanted to get a sense of time since we've begun late. Give me a sense of how much time do I have?
Around 45 minutes.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. And, great acknowledgement for putting on this amazing gathering of elders from all around the world, as well as powerful contributors to the new era for our entire planet. So thank you very much, David, for doing that. My name is Minu Mariel. And just to begin by giving you a very brief summary of my profile. And so I began my career as a technology software developer, a propeller head actually. And from India, born and brought up in India, and then went on to live in London, spent most of my adult life there, focusing primarily on inspired leadership. I'm a serial entrepreneur, great at converting ideas into business, and also became a movie producer, and a few other businesses that got created as a result, including the Inspired Leaders Network, which took me around the world to study and role model some of the most amazing leaders that were inspiring extraordinary results from all strata of society. That was my foray into a world where, spirituality, personal upliftment, and business, all of that came together. So having done all of that, I got to a point where nothing really made any sense. So having gone through that whole commercial side of my career, I've embarked on a journey which became a journey of, I call it a journey into miracles, and one of self-liberation, which began in 2010. And from that point on, I go through a whole series of spiritual awakenings. And from that emerged a very specific understanding of three things that we are all born with. We are born with choice, we are born with dignity, and we are born with a very unique mastery. And it's a unique mastery in relationships. Specifically, I call it the source mastery, which puts us at the source of our life. Choice I understand and continue to operate that way is something that that is our modus operandi. We are always choosing, even if we choose to make no choice. We are choosing even when we believe that something outside of us is causing us to do something. That is a choice and a decision that we are making. So we are always choosing. And then with regards to dignity, I got that dignity is really honoring our own worthiness. And from that space, honoring that in others. And this is something that we are born with. All of these things that we are born with, nobody can take them away from us. And they do not diminish either. We can ignore them. And that takes us into a space where we start ignoring it in the world outside of us. And that gave rise to what became the World Dignity Forum, which we seeded last year. I mean, really the philosophy there was, you know, when we don't honor our own worthiness, we have permission to dishonor that in other people and other living beings. So as a result, you know, we have a situation where a tree has value when it is chopped, when it becomes an asset. In the forest, it has no value. So many forests got chopped around the world. All of that is a function of dignity. You know, and that propelled me to look at this whole concept of dignity that is integral to anything and everything that occurs on the planet. And I embarked on looking for solutions and solutionaries who were relentlessly bringing forth ways in which dignity can be restored to humans in ethics, in the environment, in economics, as well as in the arts, in education, in relating and relationships. All of that led to us seeding the World Dignity Movement at the first gathering of the World Dignity Forum. We did that in February last year in the City of Angels, Los Angeles, with Indigenous elders. There were several that were there present with us, and there were many others who were there all around the world, at the same time performing ceremonies and rituals seeding the World Dignity Movement. And that, literally, I would say, you know, the fact that we seeded it, it began, you know, at an energetic level, various actions that started to take place around the world. We chose to adopt an ecosystem approach. So, you know, rather than address and rather than look at 7 different solutions to do with water, we felt that what if we actually created an ecosystem of different solutionaries that are providing different types of solutions for water, from cleaning up the river Ganges to retrofitting existing buildings, really bringing that dignity back to water. And we adopted this ecosystem approach. That ecosystem approach led to us also focusing on a new economic model and a new social model. We looked and a new form of leadership that is called for at different strata of society, from people of all ages, as well as all social backgrounds. And that gave rise to, you know, what I landed up doing. I sincerely thought in 2010, when I embarked on my journey of spiritual awakening, I sincerely thought that that was me retiring into, you know, getting to know myself and going deep within. What I did not anticipate was that would connect me to the calling of my soul, and I would start living a life implementing that calling of my soul, which would take me to this amazing deep connection, which is like the string that connects all the pearls of different things that make our planet a planet that works for everyone, which is dignity. So that was really, really powerful. And I connected to the calling of my soul, which is what I am engaged in now. And the calling of my soul is expecting and accepting miracles, becoming the norm for all of humanity. What is a miracle? A miracle is where something beautiful occurs that makes your heart sing. The fact that your heart is beating, that is the song of the heart. So there is a miracle here, and it's just a matter of us making the connection. And I started implementing that in practical ways. That's given rise to a series of bodies of work, which is what I bring forth now and share with the world, which really, arm each person with their own, with the gift of their own miracle lens, so they can facilitate miracles in different areas of their life, in life, in relationships, in business. And with that knowledge, I was literally catapulted out of Bali, which is where I had gone from London. I'd gone to live in Bali for 9 years. I was catapulted out of Bali, first into Wall Street for about 18 months, and then catapulted out of there into India, the place I began my journey at in this human form, and really placed in the heart of the economic model and business. And during this very special time of 2020, I came to India on the 12th of March, fully intending to leave again by the end of March. And of course, lockdowns happened, so I was here. Gave me a chance to witness and be a contributor to the powerful shifts in the social system that has been enabled by what has occurred across the world, what unites all of us across the world with this whole coronavirus, and how that is being dealt with in different parts of the world. Something that unifies everyone, it affects everyone from all ages, all genders, all strata of society. And it affects everyone in literally the same sort of way. And in my acute observance of the nuances of how elements of nature and how different humans are reacting to it, the work that I've been doing in India where I run a business collective, seeing how businesses are reacting and responding to it, and what became available if they only chose to operate in a different way, whilst their competitors might be completely closing down what became available there. I got to experience and observe at a level of nuance a very powerful integration that became enabled by bringing in ancient wisdom combined with a co-creation of a whole new way of being and a whole new way of relating, that has been enabled by what I call as the crown phenomenon. In the process of doing this, I received this wisdom of what I call as the 10 Commandments for the new world. I saw quite earlier on that we had actually entered the new world. And these 10 commandments that came in are commandments which are going to be here and shape and inform our world for millennia to come. They're different than the tablet, the commandments on Moses' tablet, and yet they are foundational. So each of these commandments really are about the foundation on which we as humans are going to build our lives, our constructs. It is these 10 commandments provide the foundation on which new systems and structures will be built. Ancient systems and ancient wisdom is going to rise to the surface. Some that has been ignored for ages. Some that was like a catalyst for new wisdom to be added to it. All of that is going to literally sit and grow from these 10 commandments that describe the foundation for our new world. These 10 commandments are the foundation for the new social system as well, because the way we relate and connect with each other is quite different as I walk you through these 10 commandments. So let me take you through what are these 10 commandments. The first commandment is that unknown is the known. So what is known is that there's lots that is unknown. And that is the known. And the corona phenomenon has completely shown that to us. It was considered to be a particular type of a virus. And yet, despite so much research and work that has been done on it, it's still quite unknown in terms of, how that is going to pan out going forward. And the reaction and response of different countries, reaction and response of different individuals, the fact that within a matter of a few weeks, the entire world, almost was brought to a standstill. Social distancing, which was something that was not considered as the norm, is actually, quite respected now. People were literally, you could say, pushed into being with themselves, distancing themselves from others that they might be interacting with ongoingly. It gave people an opportunity to just step back into themselves. Now, some took it well, some did not take it well. Regardless, it wasn't clear how long it is going to last. There was lots of predictions that were made, many with great amount of statistical information. They haven't necessarily panned out in the way it was predicted. Well, unknown is the known. So much of so what effect does that have on the social system? So much effort and energy is put into, maintaining status quo often because of the fear of the unknown. Well, if unknown is the known, what's possible? What becomes available to you in that environment? Literally anything becomes possible. And you find a way of, creating your ways in which you can feel safe within yourself, rather than putting that responsibility on things outside of you. And when you look to garner safety and security within yourself, you start to honor yourself. You start to honor your own worth. That dignity piece that we ignored for so long starts to get reawakened. And that in itself literally puts you in a state of your deep connection to yourself, to the spirit of you. And you start noticing the spirit in others. Now, there are various practical ways in which you can go through and look at unknown is the known. And, I have been doing these sessions on the 10 Commandments as I've been unveiling them every week on Thursday evening Pacific time, 5:30. So there's quite a lot of YouTube recording on this that gives you some practical ways in which, with this understanding that unknown is the known is a foundational pillar, how do you work with that? From a social system point of view, it is the first piece that reawakens you to dignity. The second commandment is uncertainty certain. So what is certain is that, there's lots that's uncertain. So if you create a way in which you're going to move forward on anything, and you become very attached to the how of it, that can literally have a catapult stress because you're so attached to the how. some things could be done. I mean, I talk about, here I am in India, and we know I was very present to the crazy, colossal scale of pollution that was there, and how much debate and discussions were going on about, how the air quality had to be cleaned, cleaning up of many rivers that are here, including the Ganges, the pollution, the lack of hygiene, all of that was going on. And lo and behold, we go through the situation with the crown phenomenon. And we have, air quality levels which are similar to the Alps in Switzerland within a matter of a few weeks. So all of those huge projects with so much funding and so much discussion and debate that we've spent decades engaging in, we all witness the result of that right there in front of our eyes. Now, my reason for citing this, and there are many extinct species that I know were only being researched in labs. We've had beaches full of these species come out to breed. Flamingos, I live in Mumbai, that there's a breeding ground for flamingos. There would be a few thousands that would come. We had hundreds of thousands of flamingos this year that showed up in the marshlands of Mumbai, one of the busiest cities in the world. Now, my reason for saying this is getting too attached to the how. If you're working with uncertainty is certain, and you release that attachment to the how, it actually, from a social system point of view, it literally takes the power away from conflict-provoking separations between communities. My way is better than your way. Well, uncertainty is certain. What are you getting attached to? And really, how do you work with uncertainty certain as human beings? In a social dynamic, how do you work with that? It can feel quite destabilizing. The way you work with it is you focus your attention on, well, in the realm of uncertainty certain, what is certain? What is certain is you. In whatever shape and form that you may be there, you're here. So you are certain. How you feel, what you're experiencing at any point in time is certain. Now, what you can do is create your own practices so that you always remain connected to what is certain that is going on for you in your life. And know that uncertainty is one of the pieces that is certain. So even just accepting uncertainty certain creates a very different way in which you plan for what next. Now, this has been instrumental in the work that I've been doing with my venture collective. These are businesses. When they adopted this whole piece about uncertainty certain, first it was like, okay, that's fine. We'll close our chain of restaurants for 2 weeks in the lockdown. And well, 9 months later, we're still here. Now, they could have gone completely out of business, but just even embracing uncertainty certain, they started looking at, well, what is certain that can be done? And from that has emerged various pivots that certainly the business owners have taken and entered a realm of thriving. At this time, what has it done in terms of social communities? For months on end, India is run by people on daily wages. They travel from the villages to the cities. And they move from there to earn. And then suddenly there were no jobs, there were no factories. And it all happened so fast. And given what was going on and how it was affecting well-being, people just wanted to be home with their families, and they could not, because within India itself, borders were closed. What I hear from the ground when I've been interacting with people who are in this space, once they actually stepped away from, being attached to how they would experience fulfillment in their life, how they would experience feeling satiated. It could be hunger, or it could be being with their family, with their loved ones. Once they accepted that, okay, we don't know what's going to occur, and it is uncertain, they started stepping into the moment and started noticing. Really, first of all, what I noticed was that they started, the dialogues shifted. The dialogues in the first 2 weeks were very different to the dialogues that people were having in the first 4 weeks. Initially, the dialogues were all about outside, what needed to have been done by the government, what needed to have been done by these NGOs. And it was all about, we are in this state because of these outside factors. And then as I continued to engage, that outside piece, where their happiness was being given out over to the outside, started coming back in. And they started really seeing that if they are to feel fulfilled, given what is going on, people are doing the best that they can. Governments are doing the best that they can. There's a realization that started to dawn, and people stopped giving the power to their fulfillment to forces outside of them. That is a very powerful impact. And the impact of that on the social systems as we go forward, where each human knows that it's up to them. And they are a key contributor to what actually shows up. That comes from standing on that foundation of uncertainty, certain. The third commandment is change is constant. It's happening now. I mean, I keep giving examples of the crown phenomenon only because it is so much present to us, but change has been constant for a long time. Having had the opportunity of spending some quality time with some amazing Indigenous elders from around the world over several years, as I was developing what world dignity actually means, what has been talked about, what has been written about this, what does ancient wisdom bring forth for us, I started seeing that if you learn to honor your own worthiness, change is constant was like a given. It was really accepted. And in amidst that change is constant, you can remain stationed in honoring your own worthiness. And that gives you permission to honor that in others. When you dishonor your own worthiness, it gives you permission to dishonor that in others. Change is constant. How do you cope with a situation where at a foundation level, change is constant, uncertainty certain, unknown is the known? The way you can rise and shine in that is coming from the space of dignity. Dignity is a very powerful reminder that you are not alone. You live in a world where there are other living beings and many non-living beings also. And we literally work together, co-creating coexistence. And these commandments start to build. Now we go into the fourth commandment. The fourth commandment, which is determining the environment in which we are building this new social system. This commandment it is no longer about survival. It's the thriving instinct that counts. So rather than operating from a survival instinct, what if we made our decisions and choices coming from our thriving instinct? Survival is taken care of. So this commandment is all about thriving, developing a thriving instinct. So as in terms of a social system, having communities, having community leaders, having, decisions that are to be made coming from a thriving instinct point of view automatically gets you to understand the interconnectedness between different things that is to be thought about. And that comes from a thriving instinct. And we've been working with this over the last several months with, several people around the world where they're operating from a thriving instinct. There are certain practices that we've started distilling that gets you to develop your thriving instinct. So just imagine what it does to you as an individual. And if every individual in every community thought, I will thrive. Thriving is not alone. I will survive is a lone thing. But you will survive at the cost of everything else. Thrive equals I will thrive with everyone else. So the tapestry is different in which the social systems rise and develop. Fifth commandment is take nothing for granted is the modus operandi. So what if you operated from take nothing for granted? What does that do to an individual? Look, a collection of individuals makes up, a social community, and how these individuals interact creates a dynamic. And the different systems that support all of that are all done in the context of this social system. And all of that is occurring on the foundation of these 10 commandments. So take nothing for granted is a modus operandi. What does that do to individuals? When I operate from take nothing for granted as a modus operandi, I am present. I anchor my presence. I'm very aware of what's going on. The greater awareness I have, the more connected I am within myself and with others. And the more appreciative I become, the more filled with gratitude I find myself in. If someone does something for me, I notice with appreciation the effect it has on me. And it also means that I keep my finger on the pulse. My own pulse, first of all, to know that I am, continually operating with choice in standing in my dignity, operating from my own unique mastery. I start observing that. And when you start doing all of those things, you start to feel comfortable and you start to feel whole and complete as well. So then you get to a point where, you're not looking for instant gratification. You're actually, seeking and playing your part to achieve, ongoing fulfillment. Commandment number 6 there is an up-leveling that is called for. And it's an up-leveling from alignment to flow to coherence. So that there's one experience that one can have if you're operating in a team where the team is aligned to the same goals, and it feels really great. Well, what if you up-level that and your team, your community, is in flow with what you stand for? What an amazing experience is that. And what you up-leveled that and stepped into a realm where every person that makes up a team, every person that makes up a community is in coherence within themselves and with each other. And what that community stands for. We literally have a world that works for everyone. Coherence is a very powerful experience. And I have been implementing this in a business context. I have been implementing this in the realm of full spectrum well-being. And all of this has occurred literally in the last 9 months, and the results are phenomenal. Businesses have, achieved highest grossing months when most of their competitors were wiped out even. People have overcome many chronic conditions, not because I've worked some woo-woo magic. They literally went through this journey of up-leveling from alignment to being in flow within themselves to actually arriving in coherence. And that which is not coherent literally steps away vibrationally. Having been in ceremonies with indigenous elders in different parts of the world, from Canada to Australia, and many, many, many places in between, I am so present to what occurs with the music, with their instruments that they use, and the chanting that occurs. It is that up-leveling from alignment to coherence that takes place. Commandment number 7. Commandment number 7 is all about unconditional acceptance. Unconditional acceptance is the WD-40 that lubricates expansion. Acceptance with conditions is not acceptance. Now, there is a way in which you achieve this. And this is not the forum for me to go into the detailed practices of it. Just suffice to say that if there is something that is really bothering you, that interrupts your flow, notice, do not ignore it, do not put it under the carpet. Notice how you feel about it. Rather than reacting and blaming something or someone outside of you, notice how you feel about it. And then just acknowledge that that's how I feel about it, and make a conscious choice to unconditionally accept what is. It literally unleashes you to expand and move forward. Then you can go and focus your attention on a solution. From a social dynamic point of view, this is a very powerful conflict diffuser. Literally releases conflict. If you are the one who's going to actually do the unconditional acceptance, you're the one that has the perfect lubricant that's going to take away, ancient stuff that might be, causing a lot of stuckness, and you'll be able to move forward and expand. Commandment number 8 is there's a move from sustainable to regenerative. It's pretty powerful to create something that's sustainable. But what if you actually focus your attention on what action do I take now? So it becomes regenerative. So every ounce of action multiplies and regenerates itself, so that next time you put your effort into something, you're not having to go back and do what you've done before. You can actually move forward. Again, be I've implemented this in different areas of my life and the work that we've been doing with others. And imagine what this does to governance systems, what this does to how we as a species operate on this planet. What if the choices we make, what if we choose ways that will become regenerative rather than solutions that only get us to a point of sustainability? Number 9 is a move from spectacular results to extraordinary results. Extraordinary result has got 3 components: unprecedented performance, operational excellence, and transforming quality of life. All 3 for you, your stakeholders, and the planet itself. This is the game that, the businesses that I've been working with, the institutions that I've been working with, we are playing the game of extraordinary results, and it is joyful, very powerful indeed. Totally essential at this time. Commandment number 10 is a move from command and control ways of operating and living our life to collaborative co-creation of coexistence. So if we had used this approach of collaborative co-creation of coexistence, we become collaborative co-creators with each other, with nature itself, with other living beings. It isn't just theoretical. And there is an intention, collaborative co-creation of coexistence. So these are the 10 commandments that provide the foundation for the new world. And whatever the whole new social system is being built on these foundations. And they're not here just for now. They literally are like the commandments on the tablet of Moses. That's how it is going forward. Certainly in many of our lifetimes and beyond. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity for sharing this. And I really look forward to, collaboratively co-creating coexistence with solutions and other solutionaries around the world. Over to you, David.
Thank you so much for the beautiful sharing. Definitely, we're going to include the 10 Commandments into our blueprint and into our Mother Earth Constitution. That is part of the blueprint itself. The global blueprint will be part of a constitution called our Mother Earth Constitution, and want to include it into there. And it's so relevant. And it does remind me of Taoism a lot, for the philosophy where emptiness and nothingness is so important, is because it's just like letting nature flow, and it flows, So that's a beautiful sharing. Gail, would you like to say something?
Well, I mean, you've said it, for me, it's quite exciting that even though many of these commandments feel like so fluid, like how could you build anything on if unknown is the known, uncertainty is certain? And literally you can create anything.
Yeah, I look at it like water, because water is, it shapes, and it's flexible. It has no shape actually. And it builds, and water is life, right? And that's the way I see it. What you just said. What is water? How would you describe the shape of water? What is it? Right?
Absolutely. What a beautiful analogy, David. Really powerful. It's like, it literally is the essence of aliveness, right?
Right.
70 to 90% of us is water. We are in water. We're surrounded by it. literally is a key to life force. And it's fabulous. That analogy really fits in perfectly with what we are talking about here. It can flow, it can take whatever shape, you know, it can enliven us, it can also destroy us. It's up to us.
And it's as it's the service to humanity without asking nothing in return. So the water gives us life, but it doesn't ask for anything in return, but it still keeps on giving. That's how I describe your 10 Commandments.
Yes, powerful. Great. Foundational to continue to enrich our lives.
Thank you so much for sharing and coming on with us. Gail, do you have any questions or you have any statements you want to give? I'm not sure she's...
No,
Oh, we
thank
have...
you for sharing your words of wisdom. And thank you for being on with us.
You're welcome, Gail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I'll let you continue with your program. Thank you. And I look forward to catching up on it on live on Facebook.
Thank you so much for coming on. Blessings.
Blessings.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Fantastic.
Nice to meet you. So,
Nice to meet you as well.
Brett Leonard, thank you for coming on, and thank you for Stephanie, Mark, for arranging for you to come on. We had this program is to create a blueprint for the future of humanity to focus on social systems, and
Yes.
we like to hear what a little bit about your background, what you would like to share with us.
Certainly. First of all, it's thank you so much for allowing me to be on here, and it's an honor to be speaking at this conference. Thanks to Stephanie and to David Cam, who I just met recently. My background is as a film director in Hollywood, but one that has been telling stories of techno mythology and things like that for many, many years. I had a film called The Lawnmower Man, which I directed, which introduced the concept of virtual reality to popular culture and the term in 1992. It starred Pierce Brosnan and Jeff Fahey, and it was a big hit film, and it sort of established me as a director of note in Hollywood. And then I went on to make a film called Virtuosity with Russell Crowe and Denzel Washington, also about virtual experience, what I call VX, virtual experience. And you know, the funny thing for me is that those films and those stories I told were cautionary tales. they were meant to say, hey, this is something coming, we should be very careful with it. And of course, beware of telling cautionary tales, because often you popularize the very thing you're cautioning against. And so I have been part of that, but I also think there's tremendous hope and possible outcomes here with virtual experience that are very, very important to the kind of mission that this whole conference represents. And so I've tried to be involved with virtual reality projects and also kind of an ethical framework around virtual reality that I come to, again, as a storyteller. I'm primarily a storyteller, but I also happen to believe that the ancient wisdom, the indigenous wisdom, is essential to be part of what virtual experience becomes for all of humanity. And it's funny, if you go back and look at, you know, tribal ritual structure and all kinds of things like that, what virtual experience is almost a going back to an ancient future. It's something that needs to have and be imbued with tribal ritual and structure. I lived in Australia for 5 years at one point in my life, and I made a couple movies there. But I also got to know through my friend Jack Thompson, who was an amazing actor, an amazing man. He was very involved with the indigenous culture there in Australia. And I got to experience something called corroboree with the Australian indigenous people at what was used to be called Ayers Rock, but is actually called Uluru in the true indigenous language. And I realized I was in the middle of the most intense multimedia experience of my life with no technology. It was an amazing epiphany that what these technologies need, what they need to be imbued with, is the incredible wisdom of so many thousands of years of indigenous peoples creating modalities of interaction that are positive, that are focused on creating a better future. And that needs to be what informs virtual experience, VX. That's VR, AR, all the R's. Of course, I could talk a lot about the technology, but and I'm very involved in the granular level of the technology, but that's not really what I wanted to speak to tonight, because I think David put out that the title I had asked him to put out was the rise of virtual experience and the evolution of the global human. And the reason I picked that title was because I wanted to talk about how these technologies are not outside of ourselves, are not these artificial things that are coming and dropping from outer space, but they're actually coming from us. And they can actually reflect, as Abraham Lincoln said, the better angels of our nature, if we tell the right story and if we develop them in the proper manner with all the voices and democratization that's necessary being a part of that development. So as someone who's developing true virtual experience through my company Studio Lightship with my partner Josh Shore, we're creating a lot of projects with virtual experience that's very, very powerful medium. And so we want to imbue that, all of those projects with an honoring of traditional and indigenous wisdom and ritual. And so that kind of connection, the ancient future connection, is something that I hope to be always championing and part of. And that's sort of why I'm here, talking about this.
Would you like to share your website or where we can reach and find out more information about what you're doing?
Certainly. I'm all over the web. We don't have a website for Studio Lightship because we're in stealth mode. We're doing very, very sensitive projects. But you can find me at LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. My email is just my name, brettleonard@gmail.com. That's BRETTLEONARD@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter as @DirectorLeonard. I'm on Instagram as Brett Leo. So, I'm all over the place in terms of the fragmented social media landscape that we have today. And one of the things I'm trying to bring to this new media, world that we live in is a kind of unity, a kind of bringing together the things, not having them so fragmented, and of course, not so controlled by gated corporate interests. And that's one of the most important aspects of this. Because right now that's the case, and we don't have to go into all the issues that's brought up because we all know those issues in our face every day. But when we are pivoting to this new metaphor of virtual experience that is rising on the surface tension of the megatrend of spatial computing, that's the next metaphor for computing that is happening. There's companies we're working with out there like Versus, which is creating the HTTP of spatial computing, where a web page isn't a page, it's a room, it's a space. And all the aspects of three-dimensional space are tracked and tagged within the context of spatial computing framework. This allows us to have much more intimate and effective interoperability in the context of virtual experience. And these are trends and technologies that are here now. So one of the things I want to say is, this is here now. The efficacy of doing it is here now. We just have to bring the willpower and the focus to do it in the correct posture, in the correct manner, which needs to empower people to create. It needs to empower the ancient wisdom, and it needs to empower structures that have worked in culture for many, 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 many centuries that may have been put to the wayside by corporatized Western culture. So technology is often looked at as something to be scared of. And that's the story we've told. When you talk about AI, artificial intelligence, first of all, the term artificial intelligence is a bad term. Who wants artificial anything, right? So I call it extended intelligence, EI, where it's an extension of ourselves as human beings. It can extend our intelligence if we actually operate with it correctly. And it can reflect the better angels of our nature, as opposed to the reptilian brainstem theater of Skynet, where it's going to come down and just destroy all living things. That's the narrative we have in our minds. We need to change the narrative to something that is a positive utopian narrative, not to be panty-waist about it, not to be naive and stupid about what the dangers are, but to actually imbue for new generations a positive template and metaphor for what this can be, because it's not coming from outside of ourselves, it's coming from us. And so is part of the natural world. And I know that can actually create some controversy with people. They think, well, this technology is not natural, there's nothing natural about it. And I understand that reaction, I really do. But it is coming whether we like it or not. And the time for us to be precious about those things is over. We need to come and imbue these new networks, these new potentials for human interaction and experience with as much positive future vision as we possibly can right from the start. Because those of us that are here right at the start of this, there's a tremendous platonic responsibility to bringing this through in this way. And so I'm reaching out to all those that have positive intention, and especially to the elders of the indigenous peoples of the world who have an unbelievably important piece to bring to this. Let's take the barriers down around technology and let's imbue them with this positive energy. And I mean, the things that I've just been able to look at that this group is doing, that, the Indigenous United Nations, these things are just astonishingly important things. I am in 1000% of support as a human being of these things. I've been very blessed in my life from elders of different traditions. And so I want to give back to that. It's informed who I am. Again, not going to get into the details of my own story. That's trivial. It's really about this larger mission that's happening, which also, by the way, and this is the other thing I want to talk about, it's not about charismatic leadership anymore. We have to activate the genius of the group mind, of the tribal mind. We have to activate that without the theater, the circus that comes around any kind of charismatic leadership. I don't care how conscious and how amazing the intention of that kind of leadership is, it falls into the human mess very quickly. And so we have to come to this with a true spirit of democratization, of ubiquity, of empowering everyone, and true equality. And that, I believe, is actually the true raison d'etre of what virtual experience is even coming to us for. It wouldn't even appear from the silicon divas, the energies that allow technology to spring, which actually are earth energies. They wouldn't allow this to happen if it wasn't for this positive purpose. And so I'm just one who is, I'm just a storyteller. I tell stories about this stuff, and I love the mythopoetics of it, and I love the technology, but I'm just trying to hold down the presence of, let's bring all of the wisdom to this that is possible without having to get into leadership skirmishes and personalities and all of that. Because the truth is, and this is the second part of my title, we are in the moment of the global human. We must become global humans, as opposed to all these disparate and fragmented aspects of ourselves. The word in the context of the body politic of tribalism has become a negative word. That's ridiculous. That should be negative. There should be an expression and joy of celebrating the difference between tribal realities, not making it just at loggerheads every single second. And so we need to shift the language. We need to bring these new energies to the technology and not necessarily see them as something to fight against. Because as long as we're fighting against it, it creates war. And we have to get rid of war. And virtual experience is a place where I believe we can all be global humans. We can all experience the imagination of what that means without all the prejudices. In some ways, it's a place that's a clean slate where we can actually begin. Now, that doesn't mean that's the only place we interact. That would be a nightmare. That's actually the nightmare that I expressed in my films. It's like, we don't want the solipsism of only having virtual experience. That's crazy. We are in a physical world. So we need to bring the intention and the positive aspects of activating the group mind, the genius of the group mind in virtual experience back into the real world very palpably and very compellingly. And that's the key that has to happen here. It can't just be one or the other, or we're screwed. So So that's sort of the overall. I don't know if you wanted to ask questions or talk.
What's that talk, fireside talk? Yesterday we were Robert Schramm and us, myself, we were talking about Star Trek. Because often, science fiction shows are way ahead of their time to explore this type of themes, right? So, and we were talking about, how Star Trek was really really advanced in the show. Was the first time black and white women, white man and black woman kissed.
True diversity.
Camera.
There was true diversity in Star Trek, but then what happened? It's like it stopped with Star Trek, and so we have to bring it through. It's true. I mean, Gene Roddenberry, who I got to meet once before his death, which was a huge thrill for me, was a true visionary of seeing just the idea of the global human, the idea of all races, all creeds, all types of individuals, including aliens with green skin. That was all fine too. So it was really an expansive vision that when I was a child, that affected me so strongly. My father would stay up late with me because it came on like at 10 o'clock. It was a late show in the 3 seasons. And he would stay up, let me stay up late to watch it. And I was changed by that storytelling. So for me as a storyteller, I see how stories and the meta narrative that we create around these things is so important. It affects us at the human level of our DNA more than I think people can imagine. And before we dream it as storytellers, it's hard to bring that dream into the reality. It's like we have to say it as a story first. And of course, in all the indigenous traditions, story is at the core of everything. So we have to bring that story into virtual experience, virtual reality, augmented reality, all the R's, mixed reality, even now they have, there's all kinds of ways of spinning this technology and bringing it to people. It's the intention that's important more than the technology itself.
I just remember in the when the Star Trek first came out, I had to watch the reruns. I was too young, but then,
Yeah.
And the funny part was, they had a communicator where you flip it and you can talk to somebody from a spaceship, right?
Yes, exactly.
Then when the first cell phones came out, they looked like communicator. The flip phones,
the
right?
Motorola's that flipped open. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was so it was basically art imitating, how did they say it? Art imitating
life imitating art, and vice versa. It kind of goes both ways. And story, when the art form is storytelling, which in cinematic storytelling, of course, involves all the other art forms. So, for me, in my personal experience, I made this film, The Lawnmower Man, which was about virtual reality. It showed actual virtual reality technology. It also showed fanciful designs for the future from our amazing production designer, Alex McDowell, who went on to do the production design on Minority Report and many, many great films by Spielberg and other great filmmakers. And those designs have infected virtual reality to this day, almost 30 years later. Because when you tell a story and it gets into the global, racial mind, something happens with story that starts to blend and morph, reality to fit its conception. And I've experienced lately, over the past several years, walking into the reality of a movie I made, which is really wild. It's a very trippy thing. It's a very interesting and strange thing. But what it also brings about is the idea that there's a tremendous responsibility in telling stories. There's a tremendous responsibility in creating actual virtual experience that, the truth of this medium is the stakes are high because virtual experience from whatever technology you're using to deliver it actually changes neuronic pathways. It hardwires us into different ways of thinking. Cinema does it to a certain degree. Reality does it to a certain degree, but actually virtual reality has a stronger aspect of that than most other mediums ever created. There's a lot of neurological data on this now. We're working, actually, one of the people we're working with is an amazing VR clinician whose name is Dr. Skip Rizzo. He's been working out of USC for many years, and he's curing people of PTSD and addiction with virtual experience therapy because it rewires the brain. There's been very interesting experiments around Parkinson's and even Alzheimer's with virtual experience. And because it rewires the brain, it's become a very strong behavioral therapy that has efficacy even in the traditional Western medical world. So we're at the cusp of these things really changing the nature of humankind's, posture to media, posture to experience. We've had the lean back experience of watching movies and watching television. Then we've had the lean forward experience of gaming, video gaming, for a very large multiple generation of people. Now there's this undiscovered country between video gaming and linear narrative. And that undiscovered country is where virtual experience exists. And we need to bring these positive elements that I've been speaking of, especially the wisdom of the ancients and the wisdom of the indigenous peoples of this planet. That's the moment where this is meant to blend back with all the things that have happened in Western culture, many, many, many horrible ones, obviously, through the history. There's all kinds of reasons to feel very trepidatious of these things. But it is the modality, I believe, that will get this to be more ubiquitous, where we can share that wisdom, we can share that energy in a deeper and deeper way with more people, because everyone can't go to these sacred sites. If everyone that wanted to go to sacred sites went to sacred sites, the sacred sites would be destroyed. So virtual expression of that in a very, very powerful way that's actually imbued with the energy that's positive and that is the great right forward intention, that is the key that we have to put into this medium, because there are others that are doing other things with this medium. Believe me, we don't have to worry about the bad stuff being done. It's being done. That's the planet we live on. We have to actually make what we're creating from a positive stance, from a utopian stance, much more powerful than the negative. And that's the race we're in right now. And we have to bring all the important voices to that challenge. It can't just be coming from the technology side, from the storytelling side, it has to be coming from all the different multidisciplines that need to inform it. Just like in Star Trek, it took all these different kinds of people and alien technology and all the different races to make what the Federation was. We've got to make a virtual federation, a place that is our virtual nation, that is actually more powerful and more expansive and more free, a clean slate from what we've experienced before, especially in media. My feeling is that media has been building to this moment. All the other forms have just been steps to get to where we're going to be able to experience ourselves in this, world building form. Because what we're talking about, one of the things we're doing at my company is the idea of world building process, where we're creating a world in the virtual realm that is connected and very palpably, has interoperability with the real. That's critical. Without those two things, it gets scary. And that's another
Yeah, there's a lot of learning from what you just said. It's because just for viewers, just to give an example, what he just said. Let's say how many people can go to Mars? Imagine if there was a Mars rover and scan the background and make a virtual reality. And when we wear the glasses or whatever
the delivery system is.
Yeah, whatever apparatus we have, we could see, like, it's like walking on the surface of Mars. Because often to go there, if we had to send every human there to take that experience, is number one, it's too expensive, and it's too dangerous. Nobody would be able to go there, right? Or to walk on the moon, that's an example. I mean, who don't want to experience a walk on the moon, how it feels, right?
Exactly. So here's the thing. That project is already happening at NASA, connected to people like myself and others in the virtual reality industry to make exactly that happen. I actually have a story that embedded in the story is the moment that the Mars landing takes place and the entire planet is experiencing it virtually. So and the truth is the technology to do that is actually going to happen. It's really, really farther along than people imagine. And that's what happens with technology. It's hard to remember before we had the iPhone and these smartphones, like our lives are so focused in that ritual with that device. That's only 10 years ago. It's nothing. It's been a very, very, very fast and rapid change. The same kind of rapid change is going to happen in the context of virtual experience, but the stakes are even higher. That's the thing that I'm saying is, a teller of cautionary tales. The stakes are even higher, and we need to bring all the proper voices to this and have the enthusiasm for affecting it, and not just let it spin up like social media spun up as these giant private corporations with gated communities and gated control. That's the nightmare version of virtual experience. We don't want that to happen. Well, the good news is that in computing, there's the open source framework, and that's where a lot of this is happening.
That's perfect. To close it off for this is also another thing. We had Alexander Laszlo on the previously on our show just two segments ago, and he was explaining about the tribe. They were the Maasai. He didn't mention by name, where a person did something wrong, and they brought them to a field and spent like 3 months telling them the good things he has done.
Right.
Imagine because it's hard to imagine on watching a movie or doing, but actually if actually the person can experience that, maybe it might change that person forever.
VR has been called the empathy machine, because when you actually have a true VR experience, it's something that really affects your empathy. You can put yourself into someone else's world much more palpably than just watching a documentary of it or a lean back experience. And so the teaching function of virtual experience is massive, because again, it actually affects our neuronic pathways at a much deeper level than other mediums have ever done before. That's neurological research that's been proven now. So again, the stakes are high, but it is a wonderful opportunity to bring all of the wisdom, all of the voices to something that can actually empower the next phase of the global human on this wild journey on this planet we're on. So I hope that helps connect the dots, and I'm always available to connect the dots with anyone who feels the same way.
Thank you so much for connecting the dots, and we'll be in touch, and we'll keep on working on this. We share Indigenous people have a vision that they want to share, but they have not been able to express it because they've been censored or not interest. But it's very, where they live, how they live, what they eat, how they interact with each other. Those are experiences that people want to experience and also learn from the culture.
Yes.
But they don't have a chance to do it because how many people can fly to the Amazon jungle, then go back new to someplace and not being afraid of dying.
Exactly. Well, the virtual experience network that has to be put together for that is where it can spread around the globe in a way that can heal so many things that need to be healed. And I just want everyone to know I am a servant to that process. Anything I know, anything I can bring, please, I am available, because one of my initiatives is the Global Human Initiative, and it's not an initiative that I'm leading. This has nothing to do with me leading anything. I'm talking about just providing space for collaboration on the kinds of concepts we're talking about, and I want to be as helpful and as effective a helper and servant to the vision you're talking about as can be out there. So it's very much an honor to be here. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you so much for coming on, and it's an honor. We shared your vision and also your knowledge, and it's extraordinary. Your life that led you from the beginning to this point, and it's going to lead you even further.
So true, so true. And there are very important Indigenous elders along that journey I'm not talking about, but affected me tremendously. So this isn't just me speaking, it's really all of that energy that I've been blessed to be connected to in my life. And I just think this moment we're in is such a powerful and important moment for us to be focused in the right direction. And it's going to come from ancient wisdom more than almost anywhere else. That's just the truth.
Thank you so much for being on